Good morning. How are you all today? Thank you for coming to visit with us again today. And we're continuing our studies from the book of Zechariah. We're in chapter 11 today, and we will be looking at the subject, Messiah Rejected. And as prophesied in the prophets of the Old Testament before Jesus came into the world, the Old Testament letting us know what would happen to Jesus in his first coming and many times in his second coming. In fact, more is said about his second coming in the New Testament than his first coming. But a lot is said by both. So welcome to Bible Study with Betty and Andre. And we'll begin our study with chapter 11, verse 1. And it begins with an invitation. Open thy doors, O Lebanon, that the fire may devour thy cedars. So this is an invitation for mankind to open their hearts to the Lord, because his judgment is coming upon the entire world. But for those who believe and trust in him, they will be delivered from the wrath of God. And so verse 2 says, "Howl, fir tree, for the cedar is fallen, because the mighty are spoiled, or the mighty are fallen. Howl, O ye oaks of Bashan, for the forest of the vintage is come down." And this is symbolic of what happened in the Garden of Eden when sin entered to the world. The fallen cedar tree and the oaks of Bashan speaks of when Satan will come to his end at the cross, when Jesus says it's finished. The works of Satan are defeated, and he will be ultimately destroyed in the book of the Revelation. But when it says, "Howl, O fir tree," that's speaking of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and that knowledge will fail. And this is why we're to trust in the Lord with all our hearts and lean not to our own understanding. Verse 3, "There's a voice of the howling of the shepherds, for their glory is spoiled. A voice of the roaring of young lions, for the pride of Jordan is spoiled." And the voice of the shepherds is the false teaching of the religious leaders to the nation Israel. But their voice is going to be interrupted and destroyed by Jesus when he comes into the world. Verse 4, "Thus saith the Lord my God, feed the flock of the slaughter." And the flock is speaking of the people of the world who will be living when Jesus comes, preaching the gospel of the kingdom. And feed the flock for the slaughter is speaking of those who follow the wickedness of the devil. They will be slaughtered and tormented. Verse 5 explains, "Whose possessors slay them." The possessors are the owners of the people that rule over the other people. "Whose possessors slay them and hold themselves not guilty. And they that sell them say, Blessed be the Lord, for I am rich, and their own shepherds pity them not." This is the condition of the world system where men rule over other people in hardship and slaughter and painful events that take place. Look at what's happening in Ukraine now and in other parts of the world that are not being spoken of in the news this day. But this slaughter has been going on because sin is in the world, and people will use the name of the Lord to carry out evil desires and plots against other people. And the shepherds is speaking of the leaders, both religious leaders and political leaders. Verse 6, for I will no more pity, this is God speaking, I will no more pity the inhabitants of the land, saith the Lord. But lo, I will deliver the men, every one, into his neighbor's hand, and into the hand of his king. And they shall smite the land, and out of their hand I will not deliver them. And this is looking forward to the tribulation period, but not only the tribulation period, but since sin came into the world, these things have been getting trouble and anguish, pain and suffering has been getting worse and worse as the years go by. Now we're going to see Christ rejected as prophesied by Zechariah, Isaiah, Jeremiah, and other prophets. Verse 7. This is Jesus speaking, and I will feed the flock of the slaughter, even you, O poor of the flock. God is going to feed his own flock. My sheep hear my voice, and they follow me. And then he says, and I took unto me two staves, or two staffs. The one I called beauty, and the other I called bands. And I fed the flock. Now, the term beauty is God's graciousness and protection, and bands is the union between Israel and Jehovah God as covenanted in the Mosaic law. But they fail, and God says, I will feed my flock myself. And you can read detailed instructions of this in the book of Jeremiah and Ezekiel. Verse 8, 3 shepherds also I cut off in 1 month, and my soul loathed them, and their soul also abhorred me. This is a picture of Satan, the beast, and the false prophet of Revelation being destroyed. And after that, verse 9 says, then said I will not feed you. That dieth, let it die, and that is to be cut off, let it be cut off. And let the rest, every one, eat the flesh of another. And this is how people will betray each other. They'll turn from the truth, and they will not accept the sacrifice that Jesus made on behalf of the whole world. And so this is where he says, and let's see, where in verse 7 where it says, I will feed the flock of slaughter, even you, O poor of the flock. And I took unto me 2 staves, the one I called beauty, and the other I called bands, and I fed the flock. So verse 10 says, and I took my staff, even beauty, even graciousness and protection, and cut it asunder. That's when he paid the sin debt. And I did that I might break my covenant which I had made with all the people. In other words, Israel is going to reject him, but the common people will receive him gladly. But this is ushering in at the end of the death, burial, and resurrection of Christ, that the church age is coming forth this day of grace. So verse 11 says, and it was broken in that day. And so the poor of the flock that waited upon me knew that it was the word of the Lord. Those are believers. They knew that what God had prophesied through the prophets had come full circle. Verse 12. And I said unto them, this is during his betrayal, Jesus' betrayal by Judas. Verse 12 says, and I said unto them, if you think good, give me my price, and if not, forbear. So they weighed for my price 30 pieces of silver. And this is Judas going to the religious leaders to covenant with them to betray Jesus. Verse 13. And the Lord said unto me, cast it unto the potter, a goodly price that I was prized at of them. And then he says, and I took the 30 pieces of silver and cast them to the potter in the house of the Lord. And that's when Judas repented himself and went back to the religious leaders to say that he had betrayed innocent blood, and they wouldn't take the money because they said it was blood money, and he threw the silver down in the temple of God. He says, so after this happened in verse 14, then I cut asunder my other staff, even bands or union, that I might break the brotherhood between Judah and Israel. And the result is some are in Palestine, others are scattered all over the world. But they will be reunited at the end of the tribulation period. So verse 15 says, and the Lord said unto me, take on thee yet the instruments of a foolish shepherd. For lo, I will raise up a shepherd in the land, which shall not visit those that be cut off, neither shall seek the young one, nor heal that is broken, nor feed that standeth still. But he shall eat the flesh of the fat, and tear their claws in pieces. And that's a picture of the Antichrist during the tribulation period. But verse 17 says, woe to the idle shepherd that leaveth the flock. What's going to happen to him? The sword shall be up on his arm and upon his right eye. His arm shall be clean dried up, and his right eye shall be utterly darkened. And that's the end of Satan, who will be in the pit along with the beast and the false prophet, and eternally tormented forever and ever. So these prophecies in the books of the Old Testament have a lot of intricate details. And this is why you have to study the whole Word of God and study it over and over again. And God reveals truths of what he wants us to know when we put precept upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, line upon line, here a little and there a little, if we want to know what the Word of God is saying to us. And so I thank you all for sharing with me and for being with me. We're nearing the end of the book of Zechariah, so we have time every day, or we should take the time every day to feed on the Word of God. So you all have a blessed day and a blessed week. I love you all. You're in my prayers, and keep us in your prayers. Bye.